We are live.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Finance and Claims Committee of the Common Council for today, Thursday, December 14th, 2023, beginning at 7:02 p.m. The second item on the agenda, which has been sent out electronically, is the roll call of committee members. Council Member Jim Freyer.
Here.
Council Member Johan Lopez.
Here.
Council Member Doug Sutton.
Present.
Council Member Dewan Wiggins.
Here.
And Council Member Greg Burnett. So we have a quorum for tonight's meeting, and I see one additional council member joining now, which is Council Member Heather Dunn. Heather, are you there?
Yes, I am. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. We just taken roll call. So again, we have a quorum. Moving on to item 3 on the agenda, which is public participation. Do we have anyone that has dialed in as an attendee that wishes to speak?
There are no other attendees.
Okay, great. Does any member of the committee have any communication from the public on any item on the agenda which they wish to share? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'll close public participation and move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes from the Finance Committee meeting dated November 9th, 2023, regular meeting. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Jim Freyer, thank you. I know there are several revisions that have been submitted from our tax collector, which I have forwarded to Chitsame to forward to the stenographer. So won't go through all of those changes verbally, but there are several items to be corrected from spelling, punctuation, and content, which Lisa has graciously submitted. Also, just to point out on page 1, at the very bottom of the page, the correct spelling of Councilmember Camacho should be corrected. So we've submitted those changes, so they will be included in the revised minutes. With that, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the minutes from the revised minutes from November 9th meeting, show by a sign of aye or raising your hand. All those opposed have the same right. Any abstentions? And I see one. I see abstention. Council Member Jim Freyer, Council Member Heather Dunn. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, 6, and 7 on the agenda, which is the Claims Committee report for December 2023. The narrative on tax collection dated December 2023, and the monthly tax collectors report dated November 2023. Over to you, Lisa B., our tax collector for those 3 items.
Thank you. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I'm the tax collector, as Councilman Burnett said, and my role in coming to your finance and claims meetings is fairly limited, and I'm going to send you with next month's information a 2-page narrative that describes why I'm here. I come to your committee meetings every month, not only to discuss tax collections and revenue, but also to provide information on tax refunds. And this committee exercises an oversight function on our office for the refunds that we issue to our taxpayers. And in certain cases, we ask you to actually take a vote on it. Anything in excess of $10,000 has to be approved by yourselves and then also by the full council. So in your packet, you have a list of refunds, which we call claims, that have already been processed by my division. We provide you this information basically just so you could have it. We're required by the charter to provide it to you. It's also on file as a permanent record, but it lists taxpayer name, amount, and reason for the refund. As some of you may recall, over the summer, we had an issue with some of our motor vehicle bills, and we had to issue refunds and credits to taxpayers. So our listing of refunds is more lengthy than usual at this time because we're still dealing with the fallout from that. So that is the first of the 3 items that I'm supposed to discuss with you tonight. And this month, we do also have a situation where we do require a vote. So in item 5, at the end of the list of claims, there are 4 items listed as a special request. And this is what we will ask you to vote on tonight and then send it to the full council. The only reason these are here is because of the dollar amount involved. They're over $10,000, and it is for leased motor vehicles where there were credits that were given, either due to the change in assessment or because individuals just got rid of motor vehicles and were not taxed for the full year. We combined a number of them because the owners of these vehicles are the leasing companies. So for example, Toyota Lease, Financial Services, and so forth, those are all for leased cars. And we are going to ask you to vote if you would be good enough on those accounts, as well as the JP Morgan Chase, which is also a leasing company. So I would ask you to do that first, and then I can move forward into the next 2 items.
Thank you, Lisa. Just looking at the listing, so the under the one for Toyota, there was one for 9,000 and another for 400. We're taking those collectively together?
Would you please? Yes. Yes.
Okay, so that totals over 10K. Okay, got it. Because I saw the entries were less than 10K. So with that, so under the Claims Committee report, we have 4 items that are over the $10,000 threshold, which we need to vote on. So at this point, I will call for the question. All those in favor of approving the claims report with these 4 over $10,000 items, please show by a raise of hand. Okay, Councilmember Wiggins, your vote? Hello, Councilmember Wiggins, your vote? Okay, we'll proceed with it being unanimous. And we will move this item to the full Common Council at the Tuesday, January 9th council meeting for review and approval.
Thank you. Proceeding forward, we now present to you, and they came to you late, so they were not in the packet. We present every month a spreadsheet for the prior month's collections and also a narrative which basically recaps the information in the spreadsheet and then expounds a little bit on what our collection activities are at this particular time of year. So the narrative reflects the current collection through the end of November. And we track our collections on an adjusted levy, which changes as the year goes forward. So for example, we added in billable collections of in excess of $4 million in motor vehicle taxes that are due January 1st. So our collectible levy went up in November, and as a result, our current collection rate went down slightly from October to November. It doesn't seem possible because we were taking money in, but we increased the pool of money that we need to collect for this fiscal year. So that's why our collection rate dipped a little bit between October and November, even though we actually collected more money from one month to the next. Nonetheless, we're still pretty much where we need to be at this time of year. Our bills have not yet gone out for the second installment or for the motor vehicle supplemental. We had hoped that they would go out this week. It's now Thursday. It's not going to happen, but by the end of next week, they will be out. I'm fairly certain, good Lord willing. We are billing a second installment for real estate, a second installment for business personal property. We are also billing supplemental motor vehicles, which were newly registered vehicles after the grand list date of October 1st of 2022. So if a person got a motor vehicle on October 2nd of 2022, they're going to get a bill in December of 2023 that's payable January 1st of 2024. It gets a little confusing, but that's the way it works with motor vehicle taxes in Connecticut. The last day to pay these bills is going to be February 1st of 2024. They're already available online. We're already taking in payments. Anybody who wants to pay before they get their bill in the mail, they're more than welcome to do so. And many people already have. And that is where we stand with the billing. We're still working on a system that is fairly foreign to us still. And this is our first motor vehicle cycle on this system. So there were a couple of hiccups along the way, but we're getting there. You also asked me a couple of months ago to include a flyer, a pamphlet on elderly tax relief. And so we're doing that with the real estate bills, with a note on that flyer that if the person, because we cannot target, we don't know what individuals' ages or incomes are. So we're sending it to everybody who's getting a real estate bill with the request that if they are perhaps not eligible themselves, to please pass it along to a friend or neighbor or someone who might be, just in the interest of getting the information out there. The application period for tax relief for next year's taxes is February through May of 2024. So we thought that this was probably the billing to put it in, because it gives people time to get those applications in to the office of the assessor where they are processed. In other news, we are collecting on tax sale properties already. Our first set of letters for our July 2024 tax sale went out about a month ago, and we have already collected close to $500,000 on tax sale properties. Just with the first set of letters going out, no notices have been filed yet, but you know, we're on the road to doing that, and you'll be hearing a lot more about the sale as we move through into 2024. I gave you some updates on our collection agency, the collection agency that's billing for past due motor vehicle taxes that we have no valid address for. They've been working for us now for 12 months. Their first set of letters went out a year ago. And so since December 2022 to now, they have billed and we have collected, I believe, I'm looking at the notes now, $800,000 to the city, not even counting their fees, but just money that we were able to collect in taxes and interest on past due motor vehicle bills that we had no valid address for. So we think that that's a valid endeavor. We're going to continue working with them. And as more motor vehicle bills come back to us undeliverable, we will turn those newer accounts over to them as well. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm here every month to answer your questions. I'm also available by email. And I'm here now to field any questions that you might have for me about any of this.
Do we have any questions for the tax collector? I'd like to thank you, Lisa, and I guess Paul also for getting that communication out on the elderly and disabled program that we will offer in 2024. That's very important. And this is the first time we're doing it. So this is great. And, you know, too often we were hearing from residents that I didn't know about this program or I didn't get information. So I think this is just another step forward in bring about transparency and information to all residents about the offerings that we provide to help them with their tax situation. So,
It's on
so
my
thank you.
website. It's on my website already. If you go to our homepage, it's already there. So,
Great, great. I see a hand up, Councilmember Jim Freya.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lisa, could you just give us a quick overview of what the criteria is for the elderly exemption? I've gotten a number of questions from some of my constituents that are interested in that, and maybe there's a way. Is it explained on your website as well?
it's on my website. The pamphlet that I did is on my website.
Okay.
And I'll send it to Paul so he can put it on his website too. It's administered through the office of the assessor. I have the figures, the income limits in front of me, but Paul, do you want to chime in here? Because it's your office that is handling it, but I do have it in front of me if you don't.
No, I have it, and I do want to thank Lisa for her efforts to get that notice out. So hopefully it'll drum up a little bit extra business. Just briefly, the elderly program, and it's also elderly and disabled for people that are 100% disabled by Social Security. It's an income-based program. There are two components to it. There's a town level program and there's a state level program. Currently, for this past season, the town level program, if a person had anywhere from $0 income to $62,100 of income, they qualified for $1,500. If they were from 62,101 to 76,500, they qualified for a $900 credit off of their taxes. And the state income limits for last year ran from 20,200, or from 0 to 40,300 for a single individual, and from 0 to $49,100. And with the state level program, the gifting isn't as generous. The highest it goes for a single individual is $1,000, and the highest it goes for a married couple is $1,250, and that's for people that are below $20,000 a year in income. It's changed slightly for this coming season. I do not have the 2020 Grand List 2023 income levels in front of me, but it went up with the COLA, whatever the cost of living increase that they have afforded for this coming season. Does that answer
Okay.
your question, Mr. Frere?
Yes, that's great. Thank you very much, Paul.
You're welcome.
I think the income limits for the state program are 43.8 and 53.4 for single and married.
Yeah,
For
sounds
California,
about what I remember.
yeah, for 2023. And we call it the city and the state program, but it's actually funded entirely by the city now because the state no longer funds it. They set the income limits for it, but it is funded by Norwalk taxpayers now, both programs.
Okay, great. Good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any additional questions for Lisa? If not, thank you very much once again for the update and overview. And we'll look forward to getting an update in January, which will reflect kind of where we're at the midpoint of the financial cycle.
Yes, and watch your mailboxes next week for your tax bills.
I'm sure that everyone is anxiously waiting to do that.
As if your assessment notices weren't enough of a Christmas present, now we're
Right.
sending you tax bills.
There we go. Right.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Welcome back to the returning members and welcome to the new members. And we're looking forward to working with you all.
It's good to be back, Lisa.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. That leads us to item 8 on the agenda, which is the update from the tax assessor on the reval process. And as Paul just mentioned, the bills have gone out. They should be in everyone's possession right now, but I'll pass it to Paul for further update.
Hi, good evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As everybody has gathered by now, my name's Paul Gorman. I'm the interim tax assessor for the city of Norwalk. Like Lisa, I'm invited here every month to give you guys updates on what the goings on are with the assessor's office and how it may or may not impact the entire budget cycle, because we're kind of closely tied. Currently, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, the notices of new assessment for the 2023 revaluation have hit the mail. And by the way that my phone is ringing in my office for the past 4 days, people are getting them. People are sometimes a little shocked by the number, but I think for the most part, they are most concerned with the fact that they're doing kind of what we asked them not to do. They're taking the new number and multiplying it by the old mill rate. And then have to talk them off the ledge to get them to the point of understanding, hey, the mill rate's going to go down. We don't know by how much yet. That won't be known until budgets are set. And that can't be known until the grand list is finally signed with any adjustments that we need to make over the course of the next 4 weeks as informal hearings happen. The gist of what we do here in the assessor's office, for people that may not know, the new members on the committee, our charge is to discover, list, and value all real and personal property and motor vehicles in the city of Norwalk, for the purposes of establishing a grand list, which then helps you guys and the whole common council to come together and come up with a mill rate to generate the taxes that are needed to run the city. With that being said, I could open the floor to questions if anybody has any about the reval. Since, like I said, since the notices are out, that's the main thrust of where we're at now. The informal hearings are being scheduled, and I believe they may have even started. I think they start tomorrow. They're scheduling up until they're scheduling up until the 22nd, but I think they start the meetings tomorrow. Mr. Fryer?
Yes, maybe you could just give us a quick overview of how you came up with the calculations. I'm getting a lot of phone calls, emails from people saying, how come my assessment or my appraisal has gone up 70% and my neighbors has gone up 5%. That's an exaggeration, clearly. But what would cause something like that?
Well, so just to put some statistics out there that aren't too telling, but they give a kind of a picture. Residential went up about 35%, give or take. Some neighborhoods performed a little bit better, some neighborhoods performed a little bit worse, but the overall average for residential real estate went up about 35%.
Right.
It gets a little murkier with commercial. Commercial is somewhere between 10 and 15%, but depending upon the sector, like apartments versus office space versus the mall, things like that, there's a lot more variety in that morass. But in a situation like you just described, in a 35% up market, could a person be at 70%? It could happen. A common situation where that would happen is maybe they did work to their house. So not only are they getting hit with an increase because the market went up, but they're also getting hit with an increase because they are not the same house that they were in 2018.
Right.
For a person to only have gone up 5% in a 35% up market, if that actually happened, I'd have to take a close look at that. That's not even something I could come up with a scenario for in my head quickly.
No, that was an exaggeration.
Yeah, well, I realize that, but even a 20% and a 35% market, there'd have to be something about the neighborhood, most likely would be the issue. That maybe the neighborhood just wasn't nearly as popular, and I would say that you would see a trending in that entire neighborhood of that happening. But even though we do mass appraisal, every house has its own set of characteristics that cause what happens to its value to happen. So sometimes something like an outlier like that, we would have to take a close look at.
Well, that was what I explained to the resident, and that you just can't look at your neighbor's house and say that you should be exactly the same. Clearly, they're not. One may have 3 bedrooms, one has 5 bedrooms, one may have a finished attic and a finished basement, and the other one doesn't, and all this other stuff that goes into that. But addressing my impression would be that in 2018, the last time we did that, if somebody had added on an addition, is it possible that that addition was not included in 2018, and that this round we are including it? How do we know that? Is it based on building permits that were pulled?
Yes, when building permits are pulled, and yes, I mean, there's always the possibility that something was missed back in 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And then it was discovered late, and we've added it recently, maybe in the last year or two, or even maybe in the last month or two, depending upon when we came across it. So that's entirely possible that it should have been something that got billed all the way back then, and it's just now coming to light and maybe got billed in the last year or two.
Okay, that's what I figured as well. I have another question on the commercial side of it. You don't think that the numbers you mentioned don't look like real big. I mean, they're not equivalent to the residential, which is expected. But do we have a situation where we've got, and I'm thinking like the mall or something like that, where we've got some abatements that are starting to disappear? Does that impact our appraisals?
Well, not on the appraisals, because the appraisals are just what they are, the market.
Yeah, you're right.
But the abatements, like the mall is on a 7-year program where they get 50% off of whatever the value is at the time. So they're going
Right.
into, I believe, year 4. But this year it's going to be 50% off of whatever new number gets settled on, because as we know, commercial, they almost always either go to court or at least they go to an appeal. So whatever the final number is, there'll be 50% of that new number. But we do have 10 other properties that are on some sort of discount program due to the enterprise zone programs that are administered by the city. And so we've only taken on one new big one this year where they're going to get 100% off. And I always use 123 Water Street because it's the one I can remember off the top of my head. That's another one that, like, last year it went from being 100% off of the building to only 50% off of the building. And now we're going to gain another 10% back. And every year we gain money back from all of those. But again, all of those are transitioning to the new number. So they're going to be 40% off of a much higher number than they were 50% off of last year.
Yeah. Okay. And one final question is, I know last year when we were calculating the grand list, it was kind of like trying to pick up a drop of water on a blanket. It kept changing quite often. I hope we are not going to be in the same situation again this year. Not to put you on the spot, but.
Well, no, I mean, the goal is to be able to give you guys a good, valid number at the time that we have a good, valid number, instead of trying to play an estimating game, going with the best knowledge that we have of the day. So my goal is to be able to sign by January 31st this year, as long as nothing goes wrong with any of the work that's going on with the informal hearings over the course of the next month. And if we sign on January 31st, we're going to have a good, valid number to give you guys. Now that number can change, but it only changes after the fact due to people going to the Board of Assessment Appeals.
Okay. I'm sorry, and there was just one final question. Is the website that that is in the letter, is that up and running? Because I heard
Yes,
from a
it
number of
is.
people that it wasn't working in the last 2 days.
Well, no, it's been working the last 2 days. Monday and Tuesday, Vision was having problems with the server.
Okay,
They got it straightened out. I think I was sitting on my couch on Tuesday at 9 o'clock when I got the thumbs up from Vision that it was up and running. And I had like 8 emails I sent out to residents who had emailed me from my couch saying, "Hey, the site's up and running. Go check it out." So it's been running
Okay.
since late Tuesday night.
okay, great. I think that's all I have for this, for right now. But thanks very
Okay.
much, Paul.
My pleasure.
Paul, if you could, for the new, finance committee members, could you just briefly walk through the appeal process? There are individuals, who have received their reval, might go to local council members asking them, what do I do if I need to appeal, if I wish to appeal the evaluation? What's the process look like?
Sure. The first step is call the 800 number that's on the letter to make your appointment. Don't waste any time saying, "Oh, I'm not going to call until I know if I have to go." Call, make the appointment, get yourself a spot, and then do your research. If you find that you don't need it, cancel the appointment. Now, back to the research portion of this. The research is you need to tell them the focus is that they are trying to determine if the value I as the assessor and the reval companies put upon their properties are accurate for 10/1 of 23. So just make up a number. I put $1 million on Greg's house. Greg has to then say, okay, is my house worth $1 million in today's market? And you can do that in one of many ways. The most expensive way is, and I've heard a lot of people mention this, oh, I'm going to hire an appraiser. I would tell people to try to stay away from hiring an appraiser because an appraiser is going to cost between $300 and $500 to possibly get nothing. And it's something you could get for free if you're friends with a realtor, because they could just run you a comparative market analysis, or for free from several online sources like Redfin, Trulia, Zillow. You can run comps through there as well. Plus the site that Mr. Freyer had mentioned before, on VGSI.com, you can do sales searches. You can punch in a whole bunch of different parameters: neighborhood, size, date range. And the important date range to search for sales is 10/1 of 22 through 10/1 of 23. And all they need to do is find comparable properties that are close in there. You try to stay within about a mile of your house, just like a bank appraiser would, simply because then you've got a very good chance that the neighborhood for the houses you're looking in would have similar land values. And then if it looks like the comps don't support $1 million, you go to the meeting, you show them the comps and say, hey, these are the ones that I found that are similar to my house. I think you've overvalued me. And if you find that the comps kind of support the value, you can cancel. But as a person who does not work on commission, it doesn't matter to me if it's $1 million, $1.2 million, or 800,000. I just want the number to be right. And I always tell people, this is your one chance to go when the numbers are new. If you think there's any kind of a niggling doubt in the back of your mind about whether or not you should be talking to somebody about it, then go. Satisfy that curiosity. That's what they're there for. That's what we're paying them for, is to listen to everybody's concerns and assuage as best as they can and adjust when necessary.
Great. Thank you for that overview.
My pleasure.
Do we have any other additional questions for Paul at this time?
Greg, I just wanted to mention, you had handed out this brochure at one of our earlier meetings, and the councilman, my colleagues should, if there's any more of these around, or at least get one of them and make a copy of it. And I've sent it out to a number of constituents, and they find it helpful.
I've got a fairly large amount of them here still in the office. So if anybody wants to stop by, pick up a handful, hand them out to whoever you want. I can tell you there was a gentleman yesterday who was asking me for his formal appraisal of his house, thinking that we do this like a bank appraisal where like we pick 3 comps for his house. He wanted to see what 3 comps I had. I explained to him that's not how it's done, and I actually photocopied him the pamphlet and emailed it to him, and he thanked me for that and said that it answered all his questions.
Right. I think it's a very helpful questionnaire. It's great. I've done the same thing. I've copied it and sent it out to constituents who had questions, and they find it helpful.
Okay. Seeing there's no additional questions, thank you, Paul, for the update. And we'll see in January if there's any further updates based upon the informal meetings that will be taken starting, I think you said this month, correct?
Yeah, they're starting tomorrow. And what
Tomorrow.
I'm going to ask that the reval company do is create a spreadsheet of everybody that's come and just list whether or not they were an increase, decrease, or no change, so that we can have a kind of a running tally of where we're at as the days go by. Because they tend to make the decisions quickly in these things. They sometimes make them right during the meeting if something's really glaring.
That's great. We'll look forward to seeing that update.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me. I look forward to talking to you guys again next month.
Great.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, moving on to item 9 in the agenda, which is to receive the Oak Hills Authority monthly financial statement for October 2023. And we have Alan Dutton, who is a member of the Oak Hills Park Authority, to give us the update.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the authority. It's a pleasure to be here. I have 2 parts of my report. We'll talk about the month of October and year to date, and also second part of the report we'll be talking about the restaurant situation at Oak Hills and where we are and what we're doing moving forward. So, looking at the month of October, we look at we look at revenue, we look at expenses, we look at our income before we pay our debt to the city and our capital expenses and our leases, etc. So for the month of October, we found ourselves our revenue was $29,000 over our budget. Golf continued in the month of October. The weather was quite nice. We did more business than we thought we would. We budgeted. Our expenses were $5,000 over our budget. But we were able, that's a $24,000 turnaround. So we were budgeted to make $8,000 in the month of October. We actually made 32. So we continue to do well, $24,000 ahead of our budgeted income in the month of October. Looking at year to date, we have 4 months in the bank. I think July, August, September, October. Our revenue is $80,000 over our budget. Our expenses are on budget. So we really have an $80,000 increase in our income over what we had budgeted. So the first 4 months have been pretty good to us. The weather has helped us, but golf continues to do well at Oak Hills. And we have been able to do some capital items. We've done some cart paths. Those of you who are golfers, between first and the second tee, we had the Big Dipper of going up and down the cart path there. That has since been improved, and we spent about $70,000 so far on improving the second phase of some of our cart paths. So that is any questions on the actual financials part of Oak Hills?
Alan, just one quick question.
Yes, Jim.
Councilmember Jim Freya, please.
Thank you. And in the package, it mentions the lithium batteries are holding up better than expected than the old standard batteries. Are
Yep.
all of the carts on lithium batteries?
Yes, they're all the same, Jim. I believe. I don't know for certain, but I know they're all the same, and they're all easy go, whatever it is. And I believe they're all lithium batteries.
And we're in the third year of is it the third year of the lease on that?
Fourth, I think.
Fourth
I
year?
think it's the
Okay,
fourth.
so we've had lithium batteries in that big barn for about 4 years now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Second discussion is on the restaurant. We have entered into an agreement with Dry Dock Smoking Aces, the concessionaire, a mutual agreement for them to leave, and we signed a document. January the 7th will be their last day. The restaurant is closed now, but they have some private functions going on. It's a mutual agreement. It's an amicable agreement. We're not fighting about it. They're up to date. They've made their December payment for their lease and the actual security deposit. There'll be one more payment left, which will be the utility payment. They're up to date on the utility payment so far, but obviously there will be the utility payment for the final quarter. So as of January the 7th, they will no longer be the restaurant concessionaire. Joanne, so what have we done about that? So Joanne Drasko, chair of the committee, has appointed me to put together a committee a search committee to find a new concessionaire. And working with the city of Norwalk, we developed an RFP. We put it out to people to see who was interested. And we've received we have a process there, which I'll get to in a minute. So I put together a committee of people, of 7 people. There's myself heading it, and we have Robert Stowers, representing, obviously Parks and Rec director on the committee, and Richard Dellinger, the 3 Oak Hills. And I thought it'd be good to get some actual golfers, people who use the facility. So we have a member of the Ladies Golf Association, a member of the Men's Golf Association. We have the unofficial, we have Steve Shepard, and we have one other member who's a developer who's been playing golf for 30-40 years. So that we have a committee of 7 of us that will basically opine and go through the process and make a recommendation to the Oak Hills Park Authority. I hope to have that recommendation to the Oak Hills Park Authority for our 18th of January meeting, whereby we'll be able to take the recommendation from the committee and hopefully have a vote as to who we're going to appoint into the new restaurant concession. The RFPs were actually due back today, and I believe they've been opened. We have 3 candidates for this position, the concessionaire. We have, I'm not going to name them right now, but we have 2 candidates who are currently operating municipal golf course restaurants. Because I think this is one of the things that we really were looking for, someone who's done this before, someone who has the ability and knowledge to operate a municipal golf course restaurant. And we have a restaurateur who is also interested. We will review these. We will go through. There's a whole marking list that all 7 of the members of us will go through the RFPs and mark them. And then we plan to have bring in our next meeting we'll bring in the 3 candidates to interview them, give them a chance to ask some questions. They can get to know us, and after that meeting we will then meet and make a recommendation. So that is the process, and that's where we are right now.
Quick question. Are you looking for a vendor to provide the same type of format or service, or are we looking to make some type of change to how the Smoking Aces functioned in that space?
Well, no real change. Obviously, we have the halfway house component, which makes money. We have the beverage cart, which also makes money. Then we have the restaurant itself, and the restaurant is obviously during the season, during the summer, it should ostensibly be busy, because it's a busy time. Then you have your shoulder seasons in the winter season. Dry Dock did not really operate too much in the winter seasons. They did private parties. But some of the golf operators if they have a strong restaurant business, will stay open and for private parties as well. But we're not looking, I don't believe, to change the format, to just close it down, or to put golf simulators in through the whole year and things like that. We'll be interested to see what the actual proposals are that come in from the restaurateurs, just to see what they propose as well during this time. We did say there are certain things, during the season, you need to be able to serve breakfast, lunch and dinner. Some verbiage about not, having a lower cost menu item for people who, don't want to spend money along things along these lines as well. But not really any, major changes in concept, I don't think, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. Any additional questions? Councilmember Jim Freya.
I don't mean to keep dominating the conversation here, but for the newer members of this committee, I think it'd be, if you don't mind, Alan, could you explain a little bit about your background? I think it's important to know that the person that's doing this and what their background is. Alan is not necessarily just a guy that wound up being picked up off the street to be put in this position. So you can explain it a little bit better than I, what your background has been.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a resident of Norwalk since 1986, so I've been here a while. I'm a dreadful golfer, and I live just around the corner from Oak Hills. But my background has been managing clubs, managing private clubs, primarily in the city. I've been general manager of 3 or 4 clubs in New York City, but when I retired, I did spend some time as an interim manager with Tokenie Club here in Darien, working as manager of the Indian Harbor Yacht Club and American Yacht Club. So I do have a lot of experience in managing in clubs, but this is a little different. It's a municipal course. It's a lot of the same concepts of places that I've managed. And one of the things we have done recently, which I think has been a great addition, is we've actually established a general manager's position at the club. We have James Holliday, who's been with us 5 months, and I think he's doing a great job in just being there and being able to communicate with the members, and also to communicate with the staff and to work with the staff. And I think we're on the right path, but I'm really happy to be able to help and to work with the members and the staff of Oak Hills. Thank you, Jim.
I think you're understating your qualifications, but thank you very much, Alan.
Okay, very good. If there's no further update, we'll move on to item 10 on the agenda. And this is an authorization which reads as follows. Authorize the purchasing agent to authorize a single source purchase order to AMCS Group, Inc. for a software platform to manage the truck scales and customer accounts at the city transfer station and yard waste site. Pricing not to exceed $72,900 with an option to extend this service for 1 extra year, and the account number is noted. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Johan Lopez, thank you. And we have with us our IT Director, Joyce Liu, along with Tom Swobo to cover this particular item and share any additional information. Over to you, Joyce.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Finance Committee members. My name is Joyce Liu. I'm the IT Director. I'm here joined with Thomas Zibo, our Waste Program Manager this evening, and to seeking approval to upgrade our transfer yard waste management software to the AMCS Group for the public work transfer station. I want to give some background about this upgrade. For the past, more than 15 years, City has been utilized Desert Micro software to manage our transfer station operations and the yard waste management. So Desert Michael was acquired by the AMCS group, which is now they are setting a deadline for migrating all the Desert Michael customer to its cloud platform. Well, now some background about AMCS. They are the industry leader and specialize in the waste management software. So for us, partner with a reputable company that will commit to continue improvement and ensure the software remain useful for an extended period is also a crucial criteria that in our software selection process. Well, there are several major improvements for the new software. Coming from moving from the local install software into a cloud-based platform that will have the most updated technology, and it will enhance our transfer station functionality, improve the efficiency, and better utilize our resource. Another one is this also including the new module, also including a customer portal, and that will this portal will enable our resident and business user to easily interact with our waste service. So we are trying to promote transparency and enhancing the overall experience for our local residents and customer. And then there is also a new scale module that is going to have a very accurate waste tracking. So that's the new enhancement for this new platform. While the benefit upgrading our transfer yard waste management software, it's really support our city's commitment to modernization and efficiency. Providing a better customer experience to our residents is also our top priority. So I'm seeking the Finance Committee's approval for this significant investment, and which will contribute to our success of the DPW's transfer station operations. So we are here to address any question you might have regarding to this upgrade.
Do we have any questions of Joyce or Tom as it relates to this upgrade? I mean, essentially, the fact that AMC has taken over from the previous software, we really don't have too much of an option, do we?
Well, actually, we do. They notified us a while ago. So we were between me and Tom, we were looking for software. So Tom being interviewed with a couple of the vendor software company, and we look through. Since we already have AMC as a backup, we know if we look around in the market, if we couldn't find anything better than AMC, we still have a backup. So now while Tom joined the city back in June, right, May or June, right, before Tom, there is a gap of about a year, right? We don't have a waste management, waste manager that is in. So when Tom coming in, not even not only need to get familiar with the environment, get familiar with everything. Now he's also on top of the looking for software. And so luckily, we know after we go through the whole process, we feel AMC is still our best choice. And so that's why we bring this agenda over, and then the cost of the software is a little bit higher than but then again, we are in the cloud, so while IT will not be in charge of a backup and restore or any upgrade during when it's on the on premise, like install on our local. So in the cloud, the software company will upgrade the software by schedule, and all we need is maintaining the internet connection. And so for us, it's a little bit money on the annual subscription. It listing for the next 4 years. What's the projection number is on the page 7. Yeah, but they agreed with us that they are just going to do allow us to do sign the contract for just first year, give a try. If we we can always work away. Yeah, but migration costs a lot of money, and based on what we see the software, I believe that's a good choice. Like Dr. Michael, we probably will stay with AMCF for a long run.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments related to this authorization? Councilmember Jim Freya.
I just wanted to ask Tom, do you see, what are some of the benefits you see with going with them? Since you're the real user here.
Yeah, so I know the major one is Desert Micro is a very older kind of version of software. We originally went with it, that 15 years ago, because it was the only one that could accommodate the 1 ton free that all of the Norwalk residents get. And now it's, technology has come so far, and AMCS is really kind of putting the, emphasis on that of making it user friendly for our waymasters at the transfer station, being able to process customers very quickly. That way it reduces the wait time in the lines, as well as a lot better reporting, both for like tonnages of the various waste streams we take in, as well as financial reporting as well. That's, I think, the biggest part too, is making sure we have accurate financial information for it. So I think all around it's going to be a more detailed software, and be able to kind of save a good amount of time, both for the waymasters, customers, and myself kind of doing the reporting and whatnot.
I think it's really important, particularly this year when we'll start to look into a new contract in the solid waste management areas. So I think this will probably help quite a bit.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Tom.
Any other questions or comments on this authorization? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of this authorization show by a raise of hand. Let's see, I see everyone, Councilmember Wiggins. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. This item will move to the full council on Tuesday, January 9th for final review and approval.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Moving on to item 11 on the agenda, which is update on the fiscal year 2024-2025 operating and capital budget. And I've asked our Chief Financial Officer, Henry Dakowitz, to kind of give us an update as to where we're at this point. We've sent out the pro forma to all the departments. Department meetings have taken place or are taking place as we speak. So I just wanted to keep the committee updated on where are we at currently in the cycle. Henry, you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great.
I think you summarized it succinctly. The way we operate is we get guidance from the mayor, who said he'd like to see budgets come in total at a 3% increase. The budget department, creates pro formas. The first step is looking at headcounts and looking at the salary increases and the increases due to steps when people move from steps along one particular position. We've been using the same 2.35% increase in salaries that we've been using for the last 3 years. However, we know we're in the process of negotiating new contracts with all of the unions. So we put a 2.35% increase into each department, so they would see what the cost the baseline cost of their expenses and salaries would be. But we're also setting up additional funds in case those negotiations lead to increases of greater than 2.35%. So we have those guidelines, then we look at every other line item in each department. And we try to give the departments the resources they might need, but as efficiently as possible. We recognize that many contracts have escalation clauses, and therefore, when you have a contractual obligation, we often have 3-year contracts with 2 additional 1-year extensions, which are allowed. So again, that doesn't give us a lot of flexibility. We're already contracted into certain numbers. We call that the pro forma that the budget department issues to all the other departments. We give the departments 4 to 6 weeks to review our numbers and to sharpen their pencils, and they come back with what they are requesting, and they input it into our computer models. The next step, we in the budget department review their requests, and we set up meetings with each and every department where we talk about the pro forma, they talk about their requests, and we get a better understanding of their operations. We have a philosophy that says we don't just dictate numbers. We try to understand their operations. We try to understand how they view their departments and why they need certain resources, be they people, computer systems, additional resources, in order to serve the public as they are supposed to. We end up coming with a recommendation that we will make to the mayor. The mayor reviews it. He will issue, this is the operating budget, he will issue the mayor's recommended budget in early February. And then it goes to the complete council to establish a cap and a ceiling on the operating budget. And it then moves to the Board of Estimate and Taxation, where they do a review of every department. The departments come in again. If they're satisfied with the numbers they have already received, that's great. If not, they advocate for them to get different amounts of money by line items. And ultimately, the BET makes a recommendation. If it's equal to or below the Common Council's cap, then we're sort of done. If, however, they recommend that the total budget exceeds the Common Council's cap, it goes back to the Common Council, and they have the choice of increasing their cap, sticking with their cap, and then the BET has to make the cut to conform to that cap. Ultimately, the last step, the Board of Estimate and Taxation is charged with establishing the mill rates, and that yields the average tax bills. It gets a little complicated in Norwalk because we have 4 taxing districts. So, and the reason, I'm sorry, 6 taxing districts. And the reason is because different districts get different services. Not everyone gets street lighting, fire services, and other services. So we have to make some different calculations. So that's the process. We have just completed the process of the budget department sitting down with the departments and reviewing their requests. And through the holidays and thereafter, we will review all the numbers that we have to make a recommendation to the mayor. The Board of Education is a little unique. Internally, their budget department has already set up numbers, but they do not release numbers until it is reviewed by their Board of Education. So right now it's a request to their Board of Education. They tend to come in January just because of the timing of those requests. They are considered a line item, one department in our budget. We fund the total amount that they request. By regulation, we are not allowed to dictate to them how they spend the money. Do they put it into personnel? Do they put it into other types of operating expenses? So the council will allocate a certain amount of money to the Board of Education, and it's up to them to allocate it as wisely as possible. But they end up being the last ones in January. As I said, in early February, the mayor comes out with his recommended budget. Historically, I have presented in 3 nights to the Board of Estimate, to the Finance Committee, and to the full council what that recommendation is, how it compares to prior years. That's the operating budget. Any questions at this time before I do capital? Okay, let me do capital, and if you have an operating question, I'll still answer it. The capital budget, a little bit different. Capital assets are assets of a certain amount which have a useful life of over 1 year. So we talk about our big equipment in the roads and the sewer system and large facilities, fleets of vehicles. Okay, what happens is, just like you do in your personal life, often people would not be able to afford a car or a house if they didn't make payments over 5 years or 30 years respectively. You enter into a contract for debt, you use that borrowed money to buy the asset, and you promise to pay off that debt over 5 years, let's say for a car, or 30 years in a mortgage for a house. We do the same thing with our capital assets, but it's more centralized. So we have a list of assets that we need to finance. And because of IRS rules, we borrow based on future cash flows. The IRS has very strict rules when you borrow on a tax exempt basis. Let me just define tax exempt. We issue bonds, and the investors who buy the bonds, in essence lending us money, are not required to pay federal income tax on their earnings. The classic example is if the market interest rate was 5%. So an investor would lend money to a corporation at 5%. They would earn that 5% as income each year. They would pay taxes. If they were a 40% taxpayer, they would pay 2 out of the 5%. So their net income would be 3%. The federal government wants to subsidize local and state governments who are investing money and borrowing money for government purposes. They say, here's what we'll do. You issue bonds that are tax exempt. And instead of issuing them at a cost of 5%, we issue them at a cost of 3%. The taxpayer says 3% tax-free is the same as 5% where it's taxable. And after they pay the tax, it's 3%. In essence, the federal government is passing on that 2% subsidy to us. So when a corporation can borrow at 5%, we're allowed to borrow at 3%. In exchange, they have certain restrictions and guidelines. There are 2 major ones, and it evolves into hundreds of rules and regulations, but it basically comes down to, if you need $100 million to build a bridge, and it costs you, and it will take 2 years, you are not allowed to borrow $150 million, and you're not allowed to hold on to that money for 5 years. Because conceptually, I could borrow at our discount rate of 3% and invest in treasury bills at 5% and make a profit on that subsidy. So they say, we're happy to help you borrow money for your government purposes, but don't abuse the privilege. Consequently, when you borrow tax-free, you must spend the money that you borrow within certain strict guidelines, usually within 2 to 3 years, and the guidelines can get very complicated. So consequently, even though every year we have a capital budget, every quarter the controller and I go out to all the managers who manage these capital projects, and we say, okay, you have an approved project, but what is your expected cash flow? When do you expect to spend the money? And when do you expect to get, let's say, state reimbursement, which occurs especially when we do construction of schools? When we do a school, for example, I've been taught the first year we may only spend 10% of the total budget. It might be for the design. Then the next 2 years are heavy construction, 40%, 40. And then the last year, we finish it off with that last 10%. Because of the IRS rules, I don't want to borrow the whole amount up front. And we'll spread it out over 4 years based on their projections. And I've been doing this for a couple of years. Their projections are really, they're very good and they're on target. So I take all of the projections from all of the managers, and then I break it down into quarters. And I say, what do we expect the next 4 quarters? So I'm trying to navigate between 2 guidelines. Number one, I don't want ever my head of public works or anyone doing a construction project, which has to be done in the summer because of the good weather, and they say, I need to pay this bill, and I run out of money. So I always want to have bond money to pay the bills, but I don't want to have too much that would violate the IRS restrictions. So that's how we have a connection between the capital budget and the actual borrowing of money to get the bond funds. So the capital budget is a little bit different from operating. The department set up a list by priority order. Here are the projects we want, and it's a 5-year program. The mayor especially likes to see good planning. It's a capital project. It shouldn't just happen with 3 months. You should know about this 3, 4, 5 years in advance. So he likes to see, okay, in 5 years, we're going to need this, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years. Okay, this is the year we need it. And the focus of the capital budget is that first year of the 5-year projections. We add up all of these items, and I mean, these are all good purposes and good projects, but we just don't have enough money to do all of them or all at once. So the mayor, so we get all the projects, we present it and review it with the mayor, but I come out as CFO separately with my recommended capital project. And the reason we ask each department to put priorities, I don't want to be the one to say, you asked for 15, which 5 should I pick? We'll go by the priorities and the discussions we have. We have discussions with each department after we talk about the operating budget. So we'll compile a list of what we recommend, and then it goes to planning and zoning. Planning and zoning is limited in its review. We have the planning master, POMC, I forget the initials. But their charge is to make sure that the capital projects conform to our planning document for the city, to make sure we are coordinated in that manner. They make a recommendation. It then comes back to the mayor, who reviews it, and he comes out with a separate set of recommendations for the capital budget. And now the roles of the council and BET are reversed from operating. The BET looks at it and sets a cap, and the council does a thorough investigation, project by project, deciding which projects they want to fund, which ones they want to increase, which ones they want to decrease, and ultimately it goes back to the Board of Estimate. So that's how the capital project program occurs, and we are in the same stage as operating. They've made their requests. I've reviewed it with my team, and we've had those discussions, and we will be sitting down probably early next year after the holidays with the mayor to review the requests and what we feel, and he will give us some guidance before we issue our own recommendations. Any questions? Okay.
Any comments or questions from any committee members? Councilmember Jim Freya.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Henry, I saw the news today that is kind of disturbing, and you keep referring to after the holidays. And from the news that I heard, that you're not going to be here after the holidays. What are the plans for going forward? The only thing that I'm a little buoyed by is the fact that I think the staff that you've assembled over the number of years that you've been with the city is pretty good. Not pretty good, very good, excellent people. But I think you've been a very strong leader, and it gives me some trepidation with what's going to happen at the end of the year.
If I can just interject, I think that's the appropriate question to direct to the mayor. The mayor and his team are currently working on what's going to happen come January. So as opposed to putting our current chief financial officer on the spot here, we will address that question with the mayor in terms of what is the plan to ensure that there's transparency and that there's no lapse in the process as it relates to our budget cycle. But Henry, if you want to add, be more
Yeah,
than
no,
happy to.
no, thank you. I think it's a fair question. I've accepted another position and I will be working through December 31st. Thank you for those kind comments, Jim. I do believe we have assembled some excellent staff members. Budget Director Tom Ellis has been through the budget 2 years now. Deputy Budget Director Agnes Kawai has been through it for 1.5 years. They're an excellent team. They balance one another. I really feel it's 1 and 1 equals 3. At the same time, I am working on an agreement with the city where I will be transitioning and assisting. So it's not like I've been grooming them, I've been training them, but they're not, flying solo all the time yet. So I'll be around. As we used to say in the big companies like Citibank, I'm a phone call and an expense code away. And I help select many of these people. I've trained them and I want them to succeed, and I want the city to have a smooth transition. So I may be away, but I'm not totally gone, and I will be assisting. They're very capable and I think they could do a lot, but I will be helping.
I think that's what I was looking to hear. So I wish the best of luck,
Thank you.
and hopefully I'll talk to you before you leave.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments related to the operating or capital budget cycle? Okay, seeing or hearing none. Before we adjourn, I also wanted to express my thanks to Mr. Dakowitz for his expertise and transparency over the course of the past 5 years. You've been a trusted voice as it relates to the stewardship of the city's finances, and we truly appreciate the work that you've done, and we wish you the best of luck going forward in your future ventures. So thank you so much, Henry, for all that you've done for the city of Norwalk.
Thank you, Greg. It's been my pleasure to work with you. You've been chairman of this committee for 5 years, as well as all the members. It's really been a pleasure and a privilege to serve the citizens of Norwalk.
Great. With that, I'll call for a motion for adjournment. Thank you, Councilmember Lopez. So all those in favor, show by a raise of hand. It's unanimous. We stand adjourned at 8:20 p.m. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the evening. Take
Thank you,
care.
everyone.
You
Happy
too.
holidays.
Thank you,
night,
everyone.
everyone.
You too. Thank you, Henry.
Take it easy, and we'll talk to you.